Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome. Today's daf is Pesachim Kuf Chaf. We are 4 lines from the top of the Yamid. Says Mazutra Masni Hachi. Mazutra had a different version of events. We're picking up on the same topic as we concluded yesterday. Mishnah tells us Ein Maftirin Achar Pesach Afikoiman, which according to Shmuel meant you don't have to have dessert after Pesach. You meant to have the tam of the Korban Pesach linger in your mouth throughout the night. The Rambam explains you meant to be mafsik the su'uda with the Pesach. It's meant to leave a lasting impression on you. It was a Korban Pesach event. You have to walk away with that as having been your last experience. That was Shmuel's approach. In fact, Rabbi Yehuda tells us another chiddush in the name of Shmuel. Even nowadays, we don't have a Korban Pesach. All we have is the last portion of matzah, what we call afikomen, the last portion of matzah, which is eaten in a way that we try to emulate. We're trying to emulate the achilas Korban Pesach, which was eaten at the end of the meal, al hasoiva, and was eaten together with the matzah and the mor, al Pesach, al matzah umror michlu. That's why we have that last portion of matzah at the end. And this halacha of ta'am applies to the matzah as well. The Rashbam explains that was actually the matzah shel choiva. The last kazais that we eat at the end, that's the main achilas matzah. Because the primary achilas matzah was together with the Pesach, as a bundle. Pesach, matzah, mar together. According to Hill, you bundle them up. Kricha achas. According to Rabban, preferably you meant to eat them together. So that's the true achilas matzah. That's a true kiyum mitzvah of achilas matzah. And just as there's a din that Pesach is meant to be the last item on the menu, likewise nowadays, although we don't have a Pesach, matzah carries that same significance and carries that same halacha. You meant to terminate your meal. You meant to end the su'uda strictly with that matzah. That was Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Shmuel, according to the first version. However, now we have a different version of events. Says the Gemara on the 4th line, Mazutra, Masni Hachi. He had a different version. Omar Rav Yosef, Omar Rav Yehuda Shmuel, Maftirin. Achar HaMatzah Afikomen. You can be maftir. After is like the Haftar and Shul. You can end after matzah with afikomen. Afikomen here means dessert. So after the matzah, which we call afikomen, it's just a borrowed term because it's the last item on the meal, so we call it afikomen. But truly afikomen means dessert. So after the matzah, which is eaten l'shem chayva, what we call afikomen, after that you can be maftir with afikomen with a dessert. Because there's no din that tam matzah must remain with you throughout the night. It doesn't carry that same significance. It doesn't have the same importance as the Pesach. Pesach is the primary element of tonight's Su'udah. The matzah and mar come on account of Pesach. They're accompaniments for the Pesach. So the main element is the Pesach. Yeah, that must remain throughout. But if you don't have Pesach, just matzah, there's no din that tam matzah must remain bepiv throughout the night. And therefore, says Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, according to this version, Maftir and Achar Pesach, you can conclude after the Pesach with afikomen with an additional dessert, even though it negates the tam of the matzah. We're going to have a raya and a kash. Name of Sayele. Perhaps we can have a raya from our Mishnah, which says Ein Maftir Achar Pesach afikomen. After the Pesach, you cannot conclude with a dessert. Achar Pesach deloy. Apparently, it's only a restriction for Pesach. You cannot add a dessert afterwards because you're going to nullify the tam Pesach. Aval achar matzah maftirin. But nowadays, all you have is the matzah. Apparently, there's no concern. You can add a dessert. That's a raya to Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. Says the Gemara, no, loy mebayah kamar. The Mishnah is simply employing a formula called loy mebayah, needless to say, meaning certainly after matzah you can't have anything because the tam matzah is relatively easy to erase. Loy mebayah ka'amar. The Mishnah means it's needless to say, it's pashut. Loy mebayah ka'amar, certainly. Loy mebayah achar matzah. Certainly after matzah, there's no need to say only to discuss that you can't have the dessert afterwards. The loy nefesh tami, because matzah doesn't have a great, strong flavor. It's not a powerful tam and can be easily erased. And therefore, certainly you shouldn't have anything afterwards. Aval achar Pesach, but after the Pesach, which is meat and has a stronger flavor, and that taste endures, perhaps there's no concern about eating something afterwards because it's not going to erase the flavor. Kamashmon, the Mishnah is coming to tell us, yes, that even after Pesach, there's a concern of erasing that flavor and don't have anything afterwards. But this restriction applies to matzah as well, so there's no raya to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. Meisvei, we're going to have a kashma brisa, which seems to indicate that even matzah has this restriction, that you cannot have anything after the matzah. Hasuv gonan, badav shonan, ve'is karitin. These are examples of baked goods which are not chametz, of course, but they don't qualify as matzah mitzvah. Whether because they were made from soft batter, sufgan, some type of spongy dough, spongy donut or sponge cake, vaduv shonin, vaiskiritin. These are also either loose batter or duv shonin is sweetened baked goods. So these are enriched products which don't conform to lechem oini. Lechem oini needs to be strictly flour and water. So either it's lacking in the element of the classification of lechem, because it was made from loose batter, or because it's matzah ashir. In any case, it doesn't qualify, but you can eat it on Pesach. Adam umalik man, one can fill himself with these items at the Seder night, provided that if he has only one kazayis of true kosher matzah, that should be left for last. So first have these items, fill yourself, and then at the end, have your kazayis matzah. And eat nothing afterwards. Ba'achroina in. You can only have that kazayis matzah all at the end of the meal. But not as your first item on the menu. First you have to eat all these items, fill yourself, and then have your matzah mitzvah. Apparently, it's because matzah needs to be the last thing that you're going to eat tonight. Because the matzah must remain throughout the night. That's a kasha to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. Says Gemara, no, not necessarily is this a kasha. Why? Lo miboye ka'amar. The Bryce is simply employing a lo miboye formula. Needless to say, lo miboye b'rishona. It's certainly pashut that you can have your matzah all the way in the beginning. It's even better actually. The ka'ach l'tayavan, because he's eating it with appetite. He's hungry. That's even a more preferred manner of having your matzah. We learned in the Mishnah early in the beginning of the parak, you meant to save your appetite for the matzah. It's a hidur mitzvah. So that's actually better. We don't have to discuss that. That's pashad, that it's mutar, and it's even preferred. Aval b'achroina, but perhaps to save your matzah for the end of the meal, that poses a concern. That shouldn't be done to asil meichla achila gasa, because you might eat it when he's overfull. In which case he's not really yet to the mitzvah. Perhaps he shouldn't do that. He should not save his matzah for last. Kamash Mlan, the Bryce is informing us, no, there's no such concern. As Tosfos is trying to explain, because while a person is engaged in his meal, he'll pace himself accordingly to allow some room for the matzah. So he attempted to bring a kasha from this brisa, which seemed to say that the matzah mitzvah is meant to be saved for the end of the meal, because you need to have tam matzah remain in your mouth throughout the night. This is a kasha to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. Mar responded, no. Perhaps it's actually better to have it first, because then you're going to eat it with greater appetite, which is a greater mitzvah. And the brisa is simply telling us you can also save it for the end of the meal. Don't be concerned about achila gas. So to summarize, we learned that the Pesach during the Bizman HaMikdash was meant to be the last item on the menu. Walk away from the Seder having eaten that Pesach as your last achila. However, Bizman Hazeh, we don't have Pesach. And all we have at that last achila is the matzah element of that bundle, of the Pesach matzah murah bundle. According to the first version, even for the matzah, we have this restriction. and it's meant to be the last thing you're going to eat. According to the second shita, matzah is not considered such a primary element of your Suda. It's not a matzah Suda, like it would be a Pesach Suda. Therefore, there's no halacha that matzah must be the last item on the list. You can actually have afikoyman dessert after the matzah. Amar Rav, matzah bizman hazeh d'oraisa. Although the Torah tells us that the Pesach, matzah, and mar are really linked with each other, you meant to have the Pesach eaten together. Al matzos, al means with. Al matzos umuroder yoichluhu. The Pesach should be eaten together with matzah and mar. In fact, some hold need to be wrapped together as a bundle. Kricha, kairich. Still, in all, says Rava, nowadays we don't have access to Pesach. The mitzvah's matzah remains a mitzvah d'oraisa. U'marer d'rabbanan. However, marer is linked to Pesach. And therefore, if there's no Pesach, there's no marer. The only reason why we eat it, it's a mitzvah d'rabbanan. Zeichet to the marer that we had there. Says the Gemara, why this difference? U'maish no marer. Why is marer different? D'chsiv al matzos u'meroyer michlu. Why do you say there's no mitzvah marer in our Torah? Because the pasuk links them together. Al matzos u'meroyer michlu. The Pesach must be eaten together with the matzah marer. And we learn from there. Bezman deika Pesach. When there is Pesach, yesh marer. Likewise, there is marer. Bezman like a Pesach, but nowadays there's no Pesach. Like a marer, there's no marer. Okay, that works. But matzah nami. If so, then matzah as well. Haksiv al matzahs u'meroyer michlu. Just as the Torah makes marer contingent upon Pesach, matzah as well seems to be linked with Pesach. So why bizman hazeh is matzah d'oraisa? Why do you differentiate between matzah and marer? Says the Gemara, matzah is different. The Torah comes back and repeats it and introduces us to a new concept that although ideally matzah goes together with Pesach, that's one form of fulfilling that mitzvah. A Pesach de matzah. But there's another pasuk. The Torah repeats the mitzvah again, which tells us it also has its independence. The Torah repeats again, be'erev teichlu matzos, which comes to tell us that even nowadays when there is no Pesach, matzah has its own independent chiyuv, and therefore the mitzvah remains min ha-Torah even bizman hazeh. So marer is secondary to Pesach, but matzah is a staple. It's a staple food. It's a primary element. Although ideally it should be done together with the Pesach, but the Torah comes to tell us be'erev teichlu matzos even bizman hazeh. Pesach can be neskayim separately. Matzah can be neskayim separately from Pesach. So that's Rava's approach. Matzah is d'oraisa, marer d'rabbanan. Rav Rachav Yaakov Amar, he doesn't differentiate. He says echad zeh, whether Pesach or Matzah, d'rabbanan, because it's so closely related and linked to the Pesach. When there's no Pesach, there's no Matzah marer. Ve'ela haksiv be'erev teichlu matzos. What about the pasuk which tells us be'erev teichlu matzos, which is a new chiyuv, which doesn't seem to be dependent upon the Pesach? That's needed to tell us that a tamei, or a fellow who's out on a trip, and he is potter from Pesach, he will still be chayiv and matzah mar. Look, you can't bring the Pesach. What you can do, you must do. You must eat your matzah anymore. This Hakadah, I mean, perhaps I would think, given the Pesach li'achli, since they don't have carbon Pesach, a tamei, a fellow who's b'derech ha'choika, is potter from Pesach, perhaps matzah marer namina loy neichel. They're also potter from the other mitzvahs because they are linked together. It's one bundle. If you don't have this, you don't have that. Kamash malon. That's why the pasuk comes and says be'erev teichlu matzos. No, it's not necessarily contingent upon carbon Pesach. A tamei, a fellow who's b'derech ha'choika. If it is bizman hamigdash, when mitzvah's Pesach applies, And even if they can't bring the Pesach, they'll still have the other elements of the Yom Tov, the matzah and the mar. But that's only provided that it's Bizman Beis HaMikdash. So they still identify somewhat with Pesach. It's a Pesach Dika Matzah Mar. But, says Rabbi Yaakov, Bizman Hazeh, when Pesach is not practical, we don't have a Mizbeach, we can't bring the Korban Pesach, there is no matzah or mar. It's only the Rabbanon. Says him of Rava Amalach. Now Rava, who used the pasuk of Be'erev Teichel Matzis for nowadays, he's going to respond to you as follows. The pasuk is available for that. We don't need it for the Tameh and the Derech Rechaika. Tameh v'shayiv Derech Rechaika leitzarach kro. You don't need a special pasuk for that. Therefore, it's available to teach us the matzah b'zman hazeh da'oraisa. Why don't we need it for the Tameh? They're no worse than the Aral. This fellow who never had a bris because of medical concerns of his brothers who died, and therefore he never had a bris. He's still called an Aral, and he can't have his Korban Pesach. U'benecha, a fellow who is nisnaker la'avish v'shamayim, does averis habitually. These two fellows cannot bring the Korban Pesach, but they are still chayv and matzah mar. And therefore says Rava, why would a Tameh or a Derech Rechaika fellow be different? And we don't need a pasuk for them. Where do we see that Ora Benecha are chayv and matzah, although they're not chayv and Pesach? The son, Kol Ora lo yichel boy, he cannot have the Korban Pesach. Boy, the boy is an extra word. It's coming to exclude boy and eichel. He cannot eat the Korban Pesach. Aval eichel matzah mar, but he can and must participate. He must partake in matzah and mar. And therefore says Rava, once we see that matzah and mar are separate entities from the Korban Pesach, with respect to the Oral Benecha, they're pata from Pesach, but they're chayiv matzah mar. Likewise, a Tameh or Derech Rechaika fellow who can't bring the Korban Pesach will be chayiv in matzah mar. And therefore, the pasuk of Erev Teichel Matzis is available to teach us to not only Bizman HaBayis, Bizman Deika Pesach, do we apply this halacha, but even nowadays, we say that Pesach, that matzah, is so such an independent entity that even nowadays that mitzvah remains. V'idach, Rabbi Yaakov responds, no, ksiv b'ayu ksiv b'ayu utzrichi. You're right. We have a pasuk by these guys, by the Oral and Derech Rechaika, Oral and Benecha. Although there's no Pesach, there is matzah mar. We have the other pasuk, Be'erev Teichel Matzis, which is needed for the other individuals, for the Tameh, Shoy Derech Rechaika, that although they're exempt from Pesach, they have matzah mar, but tzrichin, they're both needed. You cannot learn one from the other, as we'll see soon in the Rashbam. Therefore, both psukim are used up and unavailable to teach us this great chiddush, that Rava is suggesting that even b'zman hazeh, there's a chiv matzah minater. Now, why are the two psukim tzrichi? We're going to see now in the Rashbam. Let's begin up from the up on top, on the second line in the Rashbam. Matzah b'zman hazeh deraisa. This is Rava speaking. Laila harishon chayva. The first night is obligatory. Now, Rava learns it from the pasuk Be'erev Teichel Matzis. Rabbi Yaakov responds, that pasuk is unavailable because how we boilu the tamei. Shev derech rechaika was mashbeit mikdash kayim. That even during the Beis Hamikdash time, there wasn't a situation where a fellow can't bring the Korban Pesach, and the pasuk is telling you he must still have the matzah. Now, although we have a pasuk to that effect for the Oral and Benecha, says Rabbi Yaakov, ksiv b'ai tzricha. They're both psukim are needed. Why? The Tameh v'shayiv Derech Rechaika lo yalach mi Oral u'Benecha. You can't learn the Tameh and the Derech Rechaika from the Oral and Benecha. Why? The islay tashlum in the Pesach sheni. Hilkach lo yoichel matzah b'rishon. A Tameh, although he misses the first Pesach, he can still make it up with the second Pesach. So perhaps don't have your matzah now. Wait patiently. Do it right. Bring the Pesach sheni together as a bundle with the matzah mar. Rather do that than have your matzah now. Hilkach lo yoichel matzah b'rishon. Don't have the matzah during Pesach rishon. Ach yasa Pesach sheni. V'yikayim al matzah z'mer mechlu. Do it properly. And perhaps the Tameh and Derech Rechaika who have that option of Pesach Sheni should not bring their matzah and maror now. And they're different than the Oral u'Benecha, who don't really have another opportunity. Aval Oral Benecha dinu Sheyachal matzah b'rishon, don't lo yachli b'sheni. Aral b'neichel are unique because Aral won't have a bris come time for Pesach Sheni. B'neicher, well, actually, the point is that in Aral b'neichel, they don't have the opportunity to make it up. It's a din that they're excluded from Pesach, and that's it. Once they miss Pesach Rishon, they can't bring Pesach Sheni. And therefore, it's logical that they should at least have their matzah mar during the time of Pesach Rishon. But you wouldn't be able to learn from here to Tamei and Derech HaChayka because they do have a second option. Let them wait for Pesach Sheni and bring it properly as a bundle. Continues the Rashbam. If so, says the Rabbi Yaakov, if the pasuk would have only said Be'erev Teichel Matzos, I would apply it to who? This is then that matzah is an independent chiyuv from Pesach. I would apply it to who? Have mukmila b'aral b'neicha. Yeah, aral b'neicha have that privilege because they have no other opportunity. They don't have a Pesach Shem. Aval tamei b'derech ha'chayka this will tashlumin. Like the chayva b'rishon, but perhaps tamei b'derech ha'chayka who have a make-up opportunity Pesach Sheni, they shouldn't have a chiyuv of matzah mar during Pesach Rishon. That's why we need a pasuk, a special pasuk for the Tamei Derech HaChayka to teach you that even they will have their matzah and mar at first opportunity, despite the fact that they have no Pesach at this point in time. So in summary, Bizman Haseh, Rabbi says matzah remains min haTorah, be'erev teichel matzahs, even though there's no Pesach. Mar is contingent on Pesach, and there's no mitzvah bezman hazeh min haTorah. So matzah is deraisa, mar d'rabban. Rabbi Yaakov says that pasuk that you cited, be'erev teichel matzahs, is unavailable. It's coming to teach you something else. The bezman hamikdash, the tamei, derech ha'chayka still have matzah mar, despite the fact they don't have a Pesach. That's bezman hamikdash when there is Pesach in the air, but bezman hazeh there's no Pesach at all. Everything gets cancelled along with it, and therefore both matzah and mar amid rabban. Continues the Gemara. Tanya kavasei de Rabba. We have a right to Rav who says that matzah bezman hazeh derais. Sheish yom toichel matzahs ubayam hashvi atzeres Hashem lekech. The pasuk here sets the seventh day of Pesach apart from the 6 days. Eat matzahs for 6 days. The seventh day is atzeres Hashem lekecha. It's a yom tov. Refrain from halacha. There's no chiyuv of achilas matzah. And we learn from here, ma shvi rishus, just as it's rishus, it's optional on the seventh day. It's pretty clear. Av sheshisam rishus, the same concept applies to all 6 days. Matzah is merely optional. My time. Why would you say that? Why would you apply the status of the seventh day to the previous 6 days as well? That's because we have a formula, one of the 13 midrash haTorah and dreshes, which is as follows: Havadav shay b'klal. Because the seventh day was included in a klal, it was included in a general term. What does that mean? Rashbam says we have a pasuk shivas yom matzos techel, shivas yom toichel matzos. We have a unit of 7 days with the Zechi of Matzah. Now the Torah says, well, the seventh day is just Atzeres. We're separating the seventh from the bunch. There's no Chi of Matzah. So we have one pasuk which sounds like it's a Chi applied to all 7 days equally. Shivas Yomim Teichel Matzos. And now we have a pasuk which seems to set the seventh day apart and exclude it from the Chi. Havadav Shay B'chlal. The seventh day was part of the bunch, part of the klal, part of the 7 day set. And now the Torah separated from the rest. To teach. To teach what? Not only to reflect upon itself, to show, to teach that the seventh day is exempted from chiyuv of matzah, it's only optional. Rather, it's meant to be used as a reflection upon the entire klal. Meaning, just as the seventh day, you don't have a chiyuv of matzah, all 7 days, meaning the 7th and the previous 6 are potter from matzah. It's only rishus. That's one of the Yud Gimel Midas Shatar Dreshes. When you have an exception, we say, if you're included and then taken out of the klal, with a new halacha applied to you, it's not only meant to be applied to you, rather, it's merely a reflection of the entire group. So there's no chiyuv matzah on Pesach. Says the more, perhaps so it also applies to the first night. That's only optional. We have a clear pasuk which overrides the drasha, so to speak, that there's a mitzvah, a chiyuv, al matzos umrorim rechlu. On the first night, you must eat matzah. So the first night is a chiyuv, but the rest of Pesach, there's no chiyuv. The Gun actually says that there's a mitzvah kiyumis, you fulfill a mitzvah. You're not chayav, but you fulfill a mitzvah. When you eat a kazayis of matzah throughout all 7 days of Pesach. In any case, this pasuk here tells us there's a chiyuv on that first night. Perhaps this only applies when the Beis HaMikdash is Kayim. In which case we have Pesach, and therefore we have matzah as well. Bizman she'ein Beis HaMikdash Kayim minayin. What about when the Beis HaMikdash is not Kayim? After the Churban, nowadays. Talmud loyma be'erev toichel matzahs, which is another pasuk. Ha'kosav kovei chayva. Torah here is establishing a chiyuv. Even for nowadays, there's a clear raya to Rav Shita that even bisman hazeh, we say, well, ideally, matzah is meant to be bundled together with Pesach, true, but even when you can't do that, matzah is a standalone chiyuv, which remains even nowadays. Let's take a look at the Rashbam here. Let's pick up where we left off before. So we have the narrow lines in the Rashbam. It's somewhere around the middle. Shvi Rishus. Pasuk says, Sheish Yisam Teichel Matzos. We learn from here, Shvi is optional. Why? Tichsiv B'yim Shvi Atzeres. He meant to observe Yom Tov then. There's no mitzvah of matzah, like Siv Teichel Matzos. Shari Hitzim and Aklal. Torah separate the 7th from all the rest. And therefore, not only is he potter from matzah, av sheishisam rishus. Throughout Pesach, you don't have a chiyuv of matzah. Shem rotza lechol basar, b'lei lechem, or list honest, he wants to fast, or just the other, you can do that. Why do we say that it's optional throughout the entire Yom Tov? Havadav shay b'chlal. Because we had a general term, d'chsiv, shivas yom teichel matzahs. V'yatzim min haklal. The 7th day was taken away from the klal. It was separated. And therefore, it's a reflection on the entire group. All 7 days have the same halacha. Achilas matzah is optional. This is one of the 13 formulas. Comes back to teach the entire group. And therefore, only the first night is chayva because of the psukim we mentioned at the end, and even nowadays, and this is in line with Shitas Rav. Concludes the Rashbam. We learn from here the matzah bezman is a deraisa, umara derabbanon. We follow Rabbi Shita. Matzah nowadays is not Torah. Mara is derabbanon. The Tanika will say the Rabbah because you had a brayso in support of Rabbah to that effect. That's number one. Number two, we hold like Rabbi Yechanan. The Omar the ein oichlan achar matzah schayva shemachrona klum. That after the last piece of matzah, which is matzah schayva, which you used to fulfill the mitzvah's matzah, what we call today afikoimon, you're not meant to have anything afterwards. That the tam matzah remains with him. Aval shtiyas yain, but to have a drink of wine doesn't annul the flavor of the matzah. The shtil and matzah chil minei, because only food items, such as the dates, the nuts that we had yesterday, that is mevatel tam matzah, but simply drinking doesn't have that same effect. There's a shaila in the Rishonim, whether it's even wine, like the Rashbam says, some say it's dafka water. In any case, we hold like that shita that the last matzah must remain with you throughout the night. Now, I'd like to just go through the Seder, at least part of the Seder, the matzah, mar elements of the Seder, just to figure things out, to make heads and tails. We have matzah and mar, then we put them together, then we have the suda and again matzah. How does it work? How can we eat matzah so many times? Which was the mitzvah? Which one's just a minute? So, just as a short summary from the Gemara and the Rashbam, the Tais and other Rishonim, it works like this. We know that matzah ideally should be eaten at the beginning of the Suda. We discussed that today. It's meant to be l'tayavin, with full appetite and desire. Pesach, however, is meant to be eaten specifically at the end of the meal. Ala soiva, as a last item, the flavor, the tam, is meant to remain with you throughout. And it's meant to be eaten when a person is just about full. As Rashbam explained, l'mashcha l'gdula, royally, at ease, calmly, not in a state of hunger. So we have two contrasting things. We have the matzah, which is preferably eaten at the beginning of the Suda, and the Pesach, preferably at the end. That's what we do as follows. We begin the Suda with moitzi matzah, which means we take the shleimim, as the Mefarshim explained, because Pesach is no different than other Yom Tov. You have to have two shleimim, and the one broken one, and the mitzvah of achilas matzah is primarily going to be done with the broken one, lechem ani, like the ani who has a prusa, sliced bread. So the bracha of hamoitz lechem and oretz is applied to the shleimus. And we have a kazayis from the shalom. But we also make a bracha of asher kitshanu al achilas matzah, which is applied specifically to the broken one. We have a kazayis from that as well. The Rosh says you have to have two kazayis. One for the fulfillment of the mitzvah of the bracha of hamoitzi from the shalom. Another kazayis from the broken matzah, on which the bracha of asher kitshanu al achilas matzah applies. So that goes first. First matzah without anything else. Now, the Rashbam actually says the ikar mitzvahs matzah you're going to be becoming only at the end of the Suda, together with the Pesach, because Pesach is meant to be ala soiva, so to be at the end, and together with the Pesach you're meant to have matzah mar al matzahs umuray mechlu. Says the Rashbam Achidush, it's only at the end of the Suda, what we call afikomen, where you're going to be really b'makayim your chayvas matzah. So why do we have matzah in the beginning of the Suda? The answer is because you want to eat matzah l'tayavin, which is a maila in the achilas matzah. So you go ahead and have some matzah now. You actually make the bracha now al achilas matzah. Although you're not really being makayim the matzah now, you're at the beginning. It's an initiation of the mitzvah achilas matzah, but the conclusion is really only later. Now, Rashbam places both explain. Although you're making the bracha now, but it really applies primarily to later. It leapfrogs over to later, when it's going to be the real mitzvahs, the key mitzvahs achilas matzah. So you begin with matzah, then you proceed to mutter, because mutter follows matzah. Al matzahs u'meroider. Rashbam explains that earlier, that's the sequence. First matzah and then mutter. So you have them separately, and you make the bracha al achilas mutter, and then you wrap them together. That's kairich. Because we want to address Hillel's shita, that you meant to have the Pesach matzah mutter together as a bundle. But as the Gemara earlier explained, we have a problem with just initiating the meal with matzah mar together, because why? Matzah bezman hazeh is man Torah. Mar is only midrabanan. If you'll have them together as one, the mar is not a mitzvah, and it's going to be mavatal the tam matzah. Only mitzvahs, which are on equal footing, are not mavatal each other, don't interfere. But here we have matzah bezman hazeh min Torah, and mar, which is not really a mitzvah min Torah. Therefore, it's like eating matzah with a potato, and that negates the tamatz, mevatel tamatz. That doesn't allow us to have them together initially. This is the Gemara earlier. So you have matzah separately, you have maror separately, and then we wrap them together. Zeichel migdash kil. Then we have the suda, and then only later do we have another kazayis of matzah. And as Rashbam explains, Tosfos explains, that's the ikar achilas matzah. That's the key mitzvah of achilas matzah, because again, ideally matzah is meant to be together with the Pesach. That's the ideal way of you makayim matzah as a bundle together with the Pesach. And when is Pesach supposed to come? At the end of the meal, al soiva. So although today we don't have Pesach, we still have that matzah element of that bundle, of that package, and that's going to be mitzvahs achilas matzah. Now, why don't we have the kairich all at the end of the meal? It's actually the Rosh's kash on the Rashbam. Farshim explained, because the matzah at the end of the meal, according to Rashbam, is minat Torah. You can't mix mur into the picture there, because mur is only the Rabban, which is going to be mavatal the matzah. So you can't have them together. Now, to have mur before the matzah, or at the end of the meal, not have it at the beginning, you're not meant to have mur and then matzah. Matzah is the more important element. It comes matzah and then mur. And you can't have matzah and then mur because matzah is meant to be the last thing on the meal. The tam matzah must remain bepiv. So you can't have matzah and mur at the end of the meal. So you can't do it that way, and you can't mur and then matzah. You can't have them together because they negate each other. So we have the mur all the way at the beginning of the meal. After the initial matzah, we have the mur, and we mekayim the mitzvah then. And we do the koirach, to be mekayim the zeichel midashkil, but you haven't yet really fulfilled mitzvah's matzah until the end of the Suda, when you have that additional kazayis. Now the Rosh actually learns a bit differently than the Rashbam. He says that the matzah you have at the beginning of the meal, that's your kiyum mitzvah. The matzah at the end is only zeichel lePesach. It's only the Rabbanan zeichel lePesach. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach asks, why are we having matzah zeichel lePesach? So according to Rashbam, it works because that's mitzvah's matzah. With the matzah, you used to have Pesach matzah mar. You can't have the Pesach, you can't have the mar. So at least you have the matzah of that bundle. The matzah element remains. That's mitzvah's achilas matzah. But the Rosh learns, no, you're already mekayim mitzvah achilas matzah at the beginning of the meal. The matzah at the end is only a zeicha to the Pesach that we don't have. So the mitzvah Rabbanan zeicha lePesach. That's why eating matzah zeicha lePesach. It says Shlomo Zalman Auerbach because if you think of it, it's the only achila min haTorah that we have nowadays. Aside from eating Erev Yom Kippur, but it's Pesach, it's not Yom Kippur. So the only opportunity we have, the only option of a mitzvah achila deraisa is matzah. We don't have truma, we don't have kachim. That's why Chacham chose, they picked matzah as a good suitable candidate to serve as a zecher for achilas Pesach, which is a mitzvah achila deraisa. So, hopefully, to clarify things a bit, to come next Pesach, we approach the Seder with a little bit more clarity. Well, we have the matzah separately, and the murah separately, and the koirach, later on the matzah. Okay, continues the Gemara. Actually, the Mishnah. Yoshnu miktsasam. Suppose you have a group of people having their Korban Pesach, and some of them fell asleep. If it's only miktsas, they can continue eating when they wake up. Kulan lo yechelu, but if they all fell asleep, they can no longer continue eating the Korban Pesach. Let's see the Rashbam. So it's a couple lines up. Masnis. Yoshnu kun lo yechelu. Im yischilu lechel pischa. They began to have the Korban Pesach. V'yoshnu, they fell asleep. Lo yechelu, they can no longer continue eating the Korban Pesach. Why? It's a chumrah midrabanan. The nira ko'ichel pischa beis becomes, it appears like you're having Korban Pesach in two places. Why? T'ma'acha sheyoshnu. Once they fell asleep, hesichu da'atam. They diverted their attention from eating. The Tana considers it like two locations. You began here, you fell asleep. It's as though you relocated to a different place. And we know that if you begin the Pesach here, you can't continue eating it elsewhere. The Chumrah Ba'alma, it's only a Chumrah, it's Rabbanan, and it looks like he switched locations. So again, Yoshnu miktsas and Yochelu. If only a portion, only part of the Chabura fell asleep, then the remaining members who are awake and alert, they benefit the other ones who fell asleep because they keep the das going, they keep the experience awake. And there's no concern in this case. But Kulan, if they all fell asleep, in which case they left the area. The Gemara earlier spoke about the concern about zugos, don't have 2 cups, 2 drinks. The Gemara says that it's only when you leave, when you go out to the street, because you might, meet up with the shade and the ruchos. And the Gemara says that sleeping is like going out to town, because when you sleep, you leave the area. There's a Sfasemis, the Gemara in Zvachim speaks about Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim of the Kohen. If he leaves the Beis HaMikdash, it becomes puzzle. The Gemara has a shot. What about if he fell asleep? So Sfasemis says, because when you sleep, your neshama at least partially leaves the guf, as if he left the area. So sleeping is like relocating. Kulan, if they all fell asleep, they cannot continue the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Yehuda, this is what we just said, that if part of the group fell asleep, that's okay. That's only if they dozed off near the move. If they really fell asleep, lo yoichelu. Even if it's just one member of the group falling asleep, it looks like you're relocating, and according to Rabbi Yossi, the fact that there are others sitting there awake doesn't help matters. Ha-Pesach achar chatzois metames yadayim. Chacham made a gzera, made a tumah. If one touches noisar, carbon which was left after the zman achila, his hands become tummy. We're concerned about laziness, atzli kahuna. What is the deadline? What is the zman achila of Pesach? Chatzois. Chatzois of that night. And afterwards it becomes noisar, and it's metames yadayim. Ha-Pesach achar chatzois metames yadayim. Ha-Pigel va-noisar metames yadayim. And that's the general halacha. Pigel, where the kohen had a machshava, we're going to have the achila in 3 days, or be makriv in 3 days. That's a psul pigel. They will explain the reason why it's matame yadayim. So pigel and noisar are matame yadayim. Rabbi Yossi Omer nesnamnu yochelu nirdimu lo yochelu. He says if it was just a slight doze, that's okay. But if they fell asleep, then they must discontinue the achil. Heichidam nesnamnem. How do we define dozing off? Amar Rav Ashi nim. He's sleeping, but he's not really sleeping. And tir, he's awake, but not really awake. He's hovering between wakefulness and sleepfulness. Says the Gemara, Kigoin, for example, the Karile Va'ani. We call to him, we say, Moshe, and he responds. It's that much he can do. But he doesn't have the ability to respond coherently, logically. You ask him where the car keys, he doesn't know. But if you remind him, say, do you leave the car keys in the car? He says, yeah. So that's called nisnamnam. He's just dozing, he's hovering. It's not really considered sleeping. Abaya v'Yosef kamei de Rabba. There was a story that Abaya was sitting in front of Rabba. He noticed that Rabba was dozing off. Armalai, meinam kanoi mar. Are you sleeping? Which would be considered, it would be awesome to continue having your Pesach. Amar later, I respond, no, don't worry. I'm just dozing off. Utnan, and we learned in the Mishnah, they just dozed off, that's okay. If they fell asleep, then they must discontinue. I had another story with Abaye and Rabba. When Abaye was young, he says, hey, where's the table going? The Gemara says, oh, hit the nail on the head, this is the Manish Tana. So apparently that was when he was younger. This was when he was a couple of years older, and he was asking him halachically. In any case, he said there's no concern because I didn't really fall asleep. Continues the Gemara, Pesach achachatzois metames yadayim. Once you reach chatzois, it's considered noisar, and if one touches it, his hands become tummy. Says the Gemara, alma mechatzois havle noisar. Apparently, it becomes noisar at the point of chatzois, which is different than other karbanos. Usually a carbon is eaten until morning. Why is this different? Man Tana, who's the Tana? Who's the Shita here in the Mishnah? Amar Rabbi Yosef, who holds that the deadline for Achilas Pesach is Chatzois, at which point it becomes nice. The sun. V'achlos habasa b'layla zeh. You meant to eat the basa Pesach tonight. Rabbi Lezer Zari Omer. What does b'layla zeh mean? Until Chatzois. Why? We have a Gzera Shabbat. Ne'amar kan b'layla zeh. We have the term b'layla zeh used here. V'ne'amar lahala. And elsewhere, by Makas B'choros, it says, V'avarti b'eretz Mitzrayim b'layla zeh. I'm going to pass through Mitzrayim on this night. Just like over there, the Laila Hazeh means up until Chatzois. Because that's when Makas B'choros happened. Avkanat Chatzois here as well. V'achlu es habasar b'Laila Hazeh means you have up until Chatzois to have your Korban Pesach. He learns that Pesach is closely related with Makas B'choros. And we learned in the Mishnah, Pesach is al shum shepasach HaKadosh Baruch Hu al bata v'seinu Mitzrayim. He hopped over the homes of our avos during Makas B'choros, and that's the zman appropriate for Achilas Pesach. Amalei Rabbi Kiva disagrees. He says you can have your Pesach up until morning. V'alo yikvar nama b'chipazon. The Pasuk says you meant to eat the Pesach b'chipazon in haste. So although literally it means in a hurried manner, but there's a drasha. Ad shas chipazon, eat until morning, which was when Yisrael hurried out of Mitzrayim. You don't have to stop at Chatzois. You have until morning. Im came out Tamalayim Balayla. According to Rekiva, why would the pasuk say eat it Balayla? We already know from Chipazon you can eat it a whole night until morning. Why is Balayla needed? The teaches a different halach. Perhaps, just as a carbon toida or shlamim is eaten when? You do the akrava today. Today is Sunday. You can eat it today, as well as tonight, tomorrow, depending on the carbon. So perhaps Korban Pesach can be eaten today as well. You don't have to wait till the night. Tamalei b'layla. B'layla tells you no, you can only eat it at night. B'layla hu nechal, ve'nechal b'yayim. There's an issue to eat it by day. Okay, that explains b'layla. Rabbi Kiva hay hazeh ma'yav. The pasuk says, eat it b'layla hazeh. What does the word hazeh coming to teach us? According to Rabbi Azariah, they have until chatzos. According to Rabbi Kiva, what's hazeh teaching? In Boile, it's coming to teach us lem'ute layla achru da'as. It's needed to be to exclude the next night. What does this mean? Perhaps I would think hoylu Pesach kachem kalim. Pesach is classified as kachem kalim. Ushlamim is also kachem kalim. Ma shlamim necholim lishnayamim laylechad. Just as shlam has this long, extended time frame for achila, 2 days and a night. Av Pesach as well should have a long zman achila. How are we going to do it? You can't have it 2 days and a night, because it begins, the zman achila begins at night, as we just said. But substitute nights for days. Ukum leilas b'makam yamim. Let's substitute nights for days. V'yenechal l'shnei leilas v'yamechad. And have it eaten for 2 nights and a day. So tonight, the night between the 14th and the 15th, tomorrow the 15th, and the following night. Instead of 2 days and a night, as is standard by Yishlamim, switch it around, modify it slightly. 2 nights and a day. That's why we need a pasuk. Kasser Rachmana hazeh, balayla hazeh, you can only eat it tonight, and no further. So the pasuk, balayla hazeh, is used for this drasha, and we don't have an extra pasuk on Rabbi Kiva. Says Gemara Lezron Azari Amalach. Lezron will respond, meaning, how does he know these halachas? Because he already used Balayla hazeh to teach us up until chatzos. So how would he know that the Pesach cannot be eaten past tonight? The halacha that Rabbi Kiva learns from Balayla hazeh has Rabbi Lezer? No. Amalach will tell you Melei Sesirat Baikenafka. We have a pasuk by Korban Pesach. Don't leave it up until morning. Apparently, you can't leave it past morning. You can't eat it past tonight. You can't eat it tomorrow night. This halacha is learned from this pasuk. Rabbi Kiva will respond, no, we need another pasuk. Why? If not for the word hazeh, the Torah wouldn't have stipulated b'layla hazeh. We could not have learned that halacha. Which halacha? That you can't go past tonight. We couldn't learn that from Lishasiru Menad Biker, because I would think, morning? Which morning? We don't know which morning. Maybe it's the next morning. Instead of the morning of the 15th of Nisan, it's the 16th of Nisan. Don't leave it past that morning. But you can have it tonight, tomorrow, the next night. That's why we need Halei Lazeh. It's limited to tonight. Rabbi Lezer Amalach, Lezer will respond to you, no, Kaleicha, the cause of Biker. Whenever we have an unspecified Biker in the Torah, it's the first morning. Biker Rishonu. It's the first morning. Sirat Biker means you can't have it past tomorrow morning, the 15th. And there's no need for another pasuk to limit the Pesach to tonight, because it's learned from Sirat Biker. So, conclusion regarding the Zman Achilas Pesach. When Isaiah says you have up until Chatzos, afterwards it becomes noiser. According to Rabbi Kiva, you have up until tomorrow morning. Amar Rava. It actually has a halachic application today, even though we don't have Pesach. Ochal matzah bezman hazeh achar chatzos. If one has that last piece of matzah, what we call afikoyma, which is the matzah's choiva, right, which was eaten together with the Pesach, that's going to be used for fulfillment of mitzvah's matzah, at least according to the Rashbam. That matzah, if you have it after chatzos, ochal matzah bezman hazeh achar chatzos, literally lezman azari lo yotzi lechavasa, because mitzvah's matzah is linked to Korban Pesach, and just as Korban Pesach, according to Rabbi Lezer, has a chatzos deadline, matzah has the same deadline. Even bizman hazeh, we don't have Pesach, because when it comes to the time frame, it has the same as the Korban Pesach. Pshita, isn't that obvious? The Kibbutz Iska Shel Pesach, since we find the Torah connects it, links it to Pesach. Al matzos umeroidrim yechlu. Pesach will be eaten together with matzah mar. We have that connection. Okay, Pesach Dami, of course, has the same din as the Pesach. Isn't this pashut and obvious? Maldatema, perhaps I would think, ha'afki kra me'akesha. Since we find that the Torah separated, undid the hekesh. We had a Gemara earlier that the pasuk sheishes somim the chamatzes b'mashvi atzeres would seem to indicate that there is no chiyuv matzah at all. So we find that the Torah detached matzah from Pesach. Pesach is a chiyuv, and matzah perhaps not. Apparently they're not linked one to the other. That's what I would think. Kamash Malan, the chiddush here is the chiyah kra, that when the Torah restored the chiyuv matzah, Torah came back and says, "Al matzah merim yechlu." You have to eat matzah the first night, or be'erev teichlu matzahs, which applies even b'zman hazeh. What did the Torah have in mind? The chiyah kra, the Torah restored it lemilsa kamai sahadri. The Torah meant to restore it to its former status, meaning let's reconnect it back to Pesach. And it has the same Zman Achila of Pesach. So conclusion, Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah holds Zman Achilas Pesach is until Chatzos. Rabbi Akiva says up until morning. And regarding Halacha L'Maisa, and Farshim, Taisus, Rosh point out, since we don't have a clear conclusion, who to paskin like, that's why even Bizman Hazeh, we're machmer to have our kazayis at the end, the afikoyman, eaten before Chatzos. Because otherwise, according to Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, it's past deadline. Now, we can't leave the shir without mentioning the famous Avnei Nezer, who came up with a brilliant idea. One wants to have a leisurely seder, they don't want to rush, finish before Chatzos. So he came up with a brilliant idea. He says, make a condition. A few minutes before Chatzos, take a kazayis matzah and say, look, we're not sure if the halacha is like Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, in which case the deadline is coming up in a few minutes, or the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, in which case I have until morning. Take a kazayis before Chatzos and have it and say, well, if the halacha is like Rabbi Lezer, that you must eat it before Chatzos, I am now be Mekayim mitzvahs matzah. Then after Chatzos, it's already out of the Zman Achilas matzah, in which case he can eat. He can have his meal afterwards. The din that matzah is meant to be the last on the menu, and you can't have dessert afterwards, that's only up until the time of Achila. When you're within the time frame of Achilas matzah, yeah, it's meant to be strictly a matzah experience. But next morning you can certainly have your coffee, right? So after Chatzos, which is no longer the part of the matzah experience, you can have your meal. That's one side of the coin. And then he says, well, if he conditions further, if the halacha is really like Rabbi Akiva, in which case I have until morning to have my kazayis of Avikoyman, then this is just plain matzah, this is not a mitzvah, and I'm going to have my kazayis of Avikoyman later. This way he covers all possibilities. And you can have a leisurely, slow-moving seder. It's not so simple, because to make a t'nai with a mitzvah say is not so simple. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein has a whole tshuva. He doesn't agree with this approach. So we try to have our kazayis, even afikoyim, before Chatzos, to ensure that we fulfill the shita of Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah. Okay, let's summarize today's daf. Regarding eating something after the matzah, after the last matzah of the meal, we have two shitas. Bizman hazeh, Rabbi says matzah is min haTorah. Moritz Rabbanon, Rabbi Yaakov says both are midrabanan. We learned that if part of the group falls asleep, it's okay according to Tanakama, according to Rabbi Yossi. No, only if they dozed up, or if anybody fell asleep, that's a problem. We had a story with Abai and Rava, and we have the two shittas regarding the Seis Man Achilas Pesach. Hatzlacha Rab.